Hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here, and today we're going to talk about pattern testing. You guys, I volunteered for my very first pattern test totally on a whim. I saw a pattern tester call on a very big designer's Instagram page, and I was totally in love with the design. And I immediately ran and filled out the tester information to apply. And then I immediately panicked. I only had a very peripheral understanding of what pattern testing even was. And I had less of an idea of what was it going to look like? What was it going to involve? Would I even be able to accomplish the things that were being asked of me? And I took solace in the fact that it was a very big designer and there was no way she was ever going to pick me. And then she did, and then I panicked again. I don't want you to have that experience, whether you are someone who has never heard of pattern testing or you've been looking at pattern testing and you're just not quite sure if it's for you, or if you've been pattern testing for a long time. I am going to share in this series all about the ins and outs of pattern testing. I have lots of tips, both from a pattern tester's standpoint and a designer's standpoint, to help you be the very best pattern tester if you decide that's something you would like to do. All right, so what the heck is pattern testing? Pattern testing is an important part of the pattern publishing process. Say that 5 times fast. Pattern testing is simply a process by which a designer takes a pattern that they have written and sends it out to usually several people. The size of the testing group really depends on the preference of the designer, the type of design that's being published, like are there lots of sizes or just a few sizes, and how complex the pattern is. So testing groups can be just a few people or they can be lots and lots of people depending on those things. The designer sends out the pattern to the testing group and the pattern testers work the pattern just like you would any other pattern. What you're doing is you're checking for clarity. Do the instructions that the designer is giving, do those clearly communicate what you need to do in the pattern? And then you're also looking for mistakes and missing pieces. So are you short a stitch? Were there extra stitches? Every once in a while, is there a whole line that was missing? Your job is to kind of work through and then ask questions that might come up by other people who are working through the pattern before the pattern is published so that those things can be fixed and the designer can publish the best, most accurate, and most clear pattern possible. As a pattern tester, the expectations and what is offered to the pattern tester really can change. Sometimes if a designer is working with a specific yarn brand or dyer, pattern testers will be offered a discount on the yarn so that they can work their test in the same yarn if that's a strong preference. If it's a really big preference, every once in a while, I think I've only had this happen once, the yarn will be gifted to a pattern tester, but most often you're expected to provide your own supplies. Some designers offer incentives for people to complete the pattern test, such as giving them the final polished, published pattern. And every once in a while, sometimes designers even offer additional patterns as kind of a thank you. But generally speaking, if you go into a pattern test, one of the things you should be expecting is that you will be providing your own supplies and any other notions and stuff that you need, and that really you're gifting your skills to the designer. If you're thinking, I don't know if pattern testing is for me. I'm not very experienced. I want to alleviate that fear. Designers are often looking for a wide variety of ability levels depending on what they're testing. And so, you being a novice at your craft can actually be a benefit to the designer. If they're designing patterns that are meant to teach things to beginners, you are going to be an asset because you are going to help them really clarify their pattern. Another thing to think about, though, when deciding if pattern testing is for you or not, or whether you'll even enjoy pattern testing, is that very often there are pretty firm deadlines on when projects are due. And if you are a person who does not like the pressure of a deadline, pattern testing may just not be for you. But if you are the type of person who thrives on deadlines and needs a deadline to get a big project done, you can find pattern testing to be a great motivating factor for accomplishing a lot of crafting. So I've just told you that you need to think of pattern testing as a gift to the designer. While this is sometimes a paid position if you're working for a large company, and those can be things to look into if you really get into pattern testing, you can apply to larger companies to pattern test for them, and those are sometimes paid positions. But generally speaking, working for independent designers, which is where I think you'll find most of the yarn testing opportunities, you're offering your services for free. So then the question is, well, why would I even want to test? And sometimes the answer is you don't want to. Testing is not for everyone, and you shouldn't do it just because you think you should. If you want to spend the rest of your crafting career working finished patterns and doing whatever the heck you want, if you're a person who loves to modify patterns, you may not enjoy the testing process because there are definitely some more parameters on it. But there are some reasons that people love to pattern test. First of all, I know a lot of people who pattern test love to get to know more people in the yarn community. A lot of independent designers especially will start some sort of chat group among the pattern testers to just ask questions and bounce ideas off and share pictures and inspiration and stuff. And a lot of times these groups will become a little community where not only do you get to know the designer better, but you get to know other crafters as well. And people often will find friends that they become close to and stay in touch with long after the test, especially if you end up on a couple tests together and you have similar personalities. You can really bond with the other testers and grow your own community through pattern testing. Also, a lot of pattern testers love the idea of being a part of the design process. They feel passionately about pattern designing, but don't design themselves, and love to be able to help in a piece of that process to get out really great patterns to the yarn community. Another great reason to pattern test is to learn something new and expand your skills. One of the things we'll get into in another video, things to look for when deciding if a pattern test is for you, but one of the things I love about pattern testing is learning new stitches and new techniques. And this can be a great opportunity to try something new and learn new skills. Also, it's a great opportunity to kind of push yourself in your understanding of your craft, because it can be a bit of a challenge to notice when is there an issue with the pattern and when am I having an issue with my understanding. So it can be a great way to really push your knowledge and expand your experience, as well as growing a community and helping out a designer. So you've decided that you'd love to give pattern testing a try, but where the heck do you find pattern tests? That's a great question. It's one of those things sometimes that you may have seen in passing, but now that you want to look for it, where do you even go? If you have designers that you follow on social media, that is a great way to get in contact with those designers. Many designers have started making email lists that anyone can sign up for to get notifications when a designer is looking for pattern testers. If you're on Instagram, let's say, look at the link in their bio. Lots of designers will have a link right there in their bio where you can sign up for their testing call emails. And then those pattern testing calls will come straight to your inbox every time the designer has a test that they need, or a pattern that they need tested. Now, if you are following them on some other social media, go ahead and contact the designer. If you love their patterns, send them an email saying, hey, I've been following you for a while. I really love your patterns. I'm interested in pattern testing. Do you have a way that I can be notified about your pattern tests? My guess is most of them will say, absolutely, here's a list, or sometimes a Facebook group or a Ravelry group that you can join where they put out their pattern tests so that you can be notified when a pattern test comes available, and then you can make decisions about whether you'd like to apply or not. Also, I mentioned Facebook groups and Ravelry. Both Facebook and Ravelry have a plethora of testing groups. Go to Facebook, search crochet pattern testers, search knitting pattern testing groups, and you will get lots and lots of results for that. Go ahead and join those groups. Read the rules carefully. Some of them are very open communities with very few rules, and there are other ones that are tightly regulated to make it the best test possible for everyone involved. And so make sure you read those instructions and rules very carefully, because you want to make sure you're following them to respect the group and the designers and other testers' time and energy. I cannot more highly recommend the Pattern Testers Facebook group. That is one of my main sources for finding pattern testers. I will put a link in the description below to that group specifically so that you can go join that if you would like to. I also had a wonderful Meet the Maker interview with Jazzy, one of the administrators of that, and I'll link that down below too so that you can check it out. We talk a little bit about the pattern tester group and why she does it, and what's involved just a little bit if you want to check that out. And she's a wonderful, fun person. Highly recommend. Also, if you're not a Facebook person, head over to Ravelry. Ravelry is a great resource for all sorts of things, but there are groups in Ravelry too. If you have not joined any of those groups, search through. I will confess, I have not done a lot of deep diving into Ravelry groups. And from my outside perspective, it can be a little difficult to find just the right group, but do some searching around. Search for pattern testing calls and pattern testing groups. And there are all sorts of groups on there that you could join to be aware of designers' pattern tests there as well. There's also a website called Yarn Pond. Yes, I just want to make sure I'm getting that right. It is called Yarn Pond. I will link it down below. I believe that it is free for testers, but a paid site for designers. So if you are interested in doing pattern tests for designers, check out yarnpond.com and see what the requirements and if it's paid or free. That could be another great resource for finding pattern tests. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot about pattern testing, what it is, where to find some tests, why you might be interested in pattern testing, and maybe if it's not for you. It is always my goal to help you grow confidently in your craft, and I hope this video did that. There are lots of links in the description to other related videos. I hope that you will check them out. If you have any questions about pattern testing, I am passionate about the importance of pattern testing and would love to answer any of those questions. Drop a comment below and I will respond to you and do my best to help answer those questions. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications, like this video, share it with a friend who might also be interested in pattern testing. If you'd like to start a more extensive conversation about pattern testing, there's a link in the description to sign up for my email list. I send and receive all responses to any emails. I would love it if you would shoot me an email so that we could chat some more. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy crafting!